Another wonderful Saturday morning. Today I'm playing the absolute classic that is Mega Man 3. What a fantastic follow-up to... What on earth is that?
I am the terror that flaps in the night. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm your future self. I need you to go back and stop the creation of Mega Man 8. Yes, they actually made 8 Mega Mans.
So why are you coming back here and telling me this?
I can't believe they made that many sequels to it, but they're so out of ideas, it's not any good. They made a boss called Clown Man. The only way for you to stop the creation of Mega Man 8 is for you to play a different Capcom platformer about stopping crime. Everything that you'll need is right here.
Darkwing Duck. Wait, this is just a DVD. The second volume, to be exact.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I still need that. I need to finish up the series. This is actually what you'll need.
Darkwing Duck on NES, huh? Well, I have no idea how beating this will help stop the development of Mega Man 8, but am I really going to doubt my future self here? Let's get dangerous. Darkwing Duck is a stellar Capcom game for the NES. I was originally going to compare it to the Mega Man series and do like a breakdown on how it stacks up compared to Mega Man 5. My thought process was that Mega Man 5 and this game were released in the same year. Also, Mega Man 5 was my first full review on the channel, so I thought it'd be fun to do a little compare and contrast on the games. Ultimately, I was planning to say if I liked Darkwing Duck more than Mega Man 5 or not. However, I ended up scrapping the idea because Darkwing Duck actually feels pretty different than Mega Man. Despite it having things like a stage select and switching between multiple weapons, it's still very different from a lot of the Mega Man series. So ultimately I found it difficult to draw a lot of these comparisons. The game that Darkwing Duck actually kept reminding me of was actually Journey to Silius, believe it or not. I only make that comparison in the gameplay, perhaps a little bit in some of the in-game artwork, just given that both games are fairly dark, but the stories and settings could not be any more different between the two. I mean, Journey to Silius is like this really ultra-serious game, and this is based off of a kid's TV show. But anyways, the comparison is in gameplay only, and my reason for this argument is that Darkwing Duck is a lot slower paced than something like Mega Man. So coming off of my Mega Man 1 review, I was trying to blow through Darkwing Duck in the same manner, and I honestly got pretty owned by a lot of the enemies by trying to play the game this way. One aspect that immediately signals that you need to go slower is the fact that you do stop when you shoot. And Journey to Silius doesn't necessarily make you stop when you shoot, but it does require you to dissect the situations that you're in and think a lot before advancing. And I felt the same way with Darkwing Duck. The music of both games is also on the more relaxed side, but we'll delve into the soundtracks later. I originally played Darkwing Duck off the Disney Afternoon Collection, which is named after the block of shows that things like DuckTales and Rescue Rangers and Darkwing Duck appeared on. Those games are also on this collection, and thank goodness they put the sequels on there too. I only paid $5 for the collection since I got it on sale for PC. Obviously you saw I do have a physical copy of Darkwing Duck along with the DVDs of the show, and that's just my I need physical media brain. However, the Afternoon Collection is an absolute godsend for people who want to enjoy all these games in at least some way. Let's take a look at a breakdown of just how much all these games would run you if you wanted to buy the physical copies legitimately for each one. No reproductions. Real NES games would run you a ton of money for all of these. Sure, some are on the lower side. DuckTales 1, Rescue Rangers 1. They're pretty cheap. Tailspin's pretty cheap too. But DuckTales 2 and Rescue Rangers 2 make Darkwing Duck look like a cheap game. If I ever review one of those, I don't think I'll be incorporating any skits that involve a legitimate physical copy by any means. As I mentioned earlier, Darkwing Duck and all the other games in the collection are based off Disney cartoons from the era. These shows are all before my time. I grew up on things like SpongeBob and SpongeBob. However, I do remember renting some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers DVDs way back in the day. Those were the original series from the 80s, not anything newer or anything like that. So therefore, I do have an appreciation for these cartoons that are older than me. Darkwing Duck is a decent show, and perhaps even a bit underappreciated in today's world. The further I got into it, the more I started to enjoy it. Obviously, I'm not nostalgic for it in any way, so I can clearly see it's not intended for my age group now. That's okay though, I probably would have loved this show if I grew up with it. I don't really hear people talk about Darkwing Duck anymore, or even really the game all that much. That's why I set out to make this review anyway. It's another excuse to delve into something that I'm curious but unfamiliar with. I felt the need to watch the show to better understand the characters in the game. I'm glad I did because pretty much all the villains are from the show itself. Wolf Duck, I believe though, is original to the game. Alright, I've beaten one boss, but I wonder if I'm actually doing anything to stop the creation of Mega Man 8. Oh my god, there it is! Well, it doesn't look like it's fully here yet, in reality at least, but I guess I need to keep playing. The first time I played it, I just went from left to right in my stage select. If you remember from my Mega Man 2 review, the very first time I played that game, I started with Bubble Man because he was in the top left. I've realized I tend to just go in reading order if I'm not familiar with the game. And mind you, the first time I played Mega Man 2 was when I was literally like 10 years old, so that trend has stayed put with me for a long time. For the most part, I'm able to get through the stages, but it was the boss fights that made me look up some strategies. The bosses are all in very unique arenas, and they require some strategic planning to defeat them. It's very, very different from a lot of the Mega Man bosses where it's like, just wail on him and he'll die. Usually there's like a spot you can hop up to and then jump down from and have this kind of dominant strategy to defeat the boss. However, if you don't know that dominant strategy, the bosses can actually be really tricky. I like them, don't get me wrong. Just because I'm not particularly good at some of the boss fights doesn't mean that they're bad by any means. The bosses are actually one of the most unique and memorable aspects of the game. The game also does verticality way, way better than Mega Man, especially compared to like the Elect Man stage from Mega Man 1, and I would also argue the Crash Man stage from Mega Man 2. Darkwing can hold on to many different platforms from the bottom, which really helps in the vertical climbing. I love how late NES releases innovated in ways like this. It reminds me of all the footage I've seen of a game like Little Samson, and how he can climb all around on the platforms instead of just jumping and landing on them. Sadly, I've never played Little Samson because I'm too stubborn to emulate it or buy a reproduction cartridge, and yeah, I'll put the price up on the screen right now for you, so yeah, not planning on owning that anytime soon. There are some very frustrating enemies in Darkwing Duck. Again, I'm still fairly new to this one, so in time I'm sure I could master it a bit more, but sometimes I find myself just getting walloped in certain situations. The most memorably frustrating enemies for me are the Genie Lamp guys, the Face Flowers, and the Robot guys in the final stage. If you aren't careful with them, you'll easily lose an entire life to them, as you can only take 4 hits. Also, it didn't help that my first time playing I had no idea you could block by pushing up. That's not a common tactic in an NES game, so don't fault me for that. However, now that I've played through the game twice, I can confirm that the block isn't even all that useful. Careful platforming, anticipation of enemy patterns, and planned jumps are really what you need for this game. I'm not necessarily complaining or saying it's bad to have tough enemies in a game. This is the NES after all, it's very expected. There are a few enemies though that I legitimately do not like, and one of those is definitely those turtle shell guys, and the other dudes that are similar to Sniper Joe from Mega Man. See, in Mega Man it's alright where they have the Sniper Joes or the Hammer Joes, because they're not used all that often. There's not a whole lot of like waiting around in Mega Man. However, Darkwing Duck has several enemies that make you wait around, and they use them kind of frequently, and it can just be really annoying. Sometimes even getting the turtle guys to trigger throwing their shell at you can be tricky. For the most part, you'll just see me skip past these guys or speed up the footage because it's really boring just watching me fight them. Overall though, there are some really creative and fun enemies in this game. I just have to give it a knock for a couple of bad guys. In classic Capcom style, we of course have a stage select. We start with only 3 and then unlock the next 3 and then the final area. It reminds me of Mega Man 7's style of unlocking the second half of Robot Masters later on, though this game was way before Mega Man 7. The order of operations doesn't matter at all in this game though, which is contrary to Mega Man. I just go left to right in the beginning 3 as I mentioned, however for the second 3 I go right to left. That's mostly just because I find the forest level to be really difficult and I like to save it for the end. Old Reggie Bushroot really put together a tough clan of bad guys to cause chaos in the forest. I wonder if any of these guys are connected to the New Orleans Saints by chance. You do get several sub-weapons in the game. There are only 3, and they are all powered by gas containers that you find in the stages, and you can only have one at a time. That is also way different from Mega Man, where you get a whole arsenal of weapons by the end of the game. I like the change of pace in only having one sub-weapon. First of all, it does simplify things. Second, you really have to value the weapons. The best one by far is the arrow gas. When you have that, you are hardly even worried about the enemies. Your biggest enemy is that damn thunder gas, which I found to be almost entirely useless. I tried using it on Megavolt, and you can see it was probably more to my detriment than to my benefit. The heavy gas does have some use, and I even opt for the heavy gas strategy against the final boss. It feels fun to hang up on the hook and rain down bullets on old Steelbeak. But before we finish this game and take care of our business with my house guest, we need to discuss the soundtrack and the artwork. I would have to say that my favorite theme is the tower, but the bridge comes super close. As I've mentioned, I start with the bridge, and so firing up the game and hearing that theme right off the bat, it's really nice. The chiptune remake of the show's theme song is also incredible. I love these laid-back soundtracks on the NES. Typically, when I think of NES music, I think of things composed by someone like Tim Follin. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love a good Tim Follin soundtrack. The NES was so radical that the frickin' Pictionary game had a title theme that sounds like this. However, a change of pace is great. I said the same thing in my Mega Man 5 review, and funny enough, Darkwing Duck and Mega Man 5 both came out in 1992, so I guess that was the year of chilled out NES soundtracks. It's as if these games knew that the NES was dying out and that the Super Nintendo was the new kid on the block. Instead of trying so hard to impress us with insanely fast and wicked sounds, we're just here relaxing and riding out the final years of the console. Mind you, the game still kicks my ass a lot, but at least I'm getting absolutely rocked to some music that I want to snap my fingers to. The biggest driver of the soundtrack being this way is the fact that the show also has this art style. It would probably be a bit off-brand if this game had an absolute screamer of a soundtrack. So, the composer, Yasuaki Fujita, did a phenomenal job honoring the artistic choices made in the show with the game's soundtrack. Speaking of the artistic choices, the in-game art is phenomenal. You really have to appreciate those late NES games that just had the color palette so down at this point. Compared to earlier NES releases like Mega Man 1, it's night and day. I really do love the darker theme here and the use of a lot of deep blues and purples. This game is perfect for that October-November type weather with its color palette, hence why I'm making this video in October. It starts getting darker so much earlier in these months it just makes you want to stay in and fire up a game that looks exactly like this one. Also, the recreation of St. Canard here on the map is really accurate and would certainly make any kid feel like they're playing through an episode of the show. One thing, though, that kind of annoyed me was that the city center stage is in the day instead of the night. I get it that the bridge stage is at night, and they may not have wanted to repeat that, but the show has them in the city at night constantly. I don't want to be here in the day. This doesn't remind me of fighting crime, it reminds me of running errands. Despite this very minor issue, the game overall has incredible artwork. The job well done scene is great. The opening cutscene also looks great, and so does the ending. Overall, I really enjoy the setting of this show and the game being focused a little more in the city. Sure, old DW lives in the suburbs with his daughter, and they travel all over the world anyway. However, it's obvious that St. Canard is the focal point of the show. It reminds me of something like Hey Arnold, which may just be the finest example of a city cartoon. So many cartoons are set in generic suburbs, but Darkwing Duck and Hey Arnold dare to be different and show more of inner city life. So yes, I do have the physical cartridge of the game, but I could not find a manual for a decent price before getting this video out. It's a little bit on the pricier side. Obviously it's not as bad as something like DuckTales 2 or Rescue Rangers 2, but it's still a little pricey. So we're going to go through some highlights now from a digital scan of the manual, and I'll post a link to the digital manual in the description. The beauty of digital preservation has helped out this channel and my wallet so much, and that's just why these efforts are super appreciated. So you see here my image of the box. This is from the Cover Project, so this is that website where you can make your own custom cases, and it's a reproduction of the NES box art. So, but it's a very high quality image and it's really well made. You can see the cover art's got a lot of those deep blues and purples, and we're at night in the city. You know, it's exactly what you would expect from a Darkwing Duck game, and I think it looks phenomenal. Back of the box, we got "Let's Get Dangerous" in real big text, what anybody would be expecting from a game like this. It talks about how we have 7 levels. There are bonus stages, which I haven't even talked about yet in this video, but yes, there are those. And it's a one-player only game. And then we see a few nice screenshots here in color. Looks really good. So let's move on to the manual next. So by the time something like 1992 came around, the NES manuals took kind of one of two directions. They were either really, really big and detailed, or they were super simple because the designers figured that nobody needed in-depth manuals for NES games anymore. I mean, if you've ever seen the one for Mario Duck Hunt, you know it's like really detailed about explaining how to jump. But ones like this now are like, okay, you guys get it, right? And it's very simple, and it's definitely underwhelming. It's definitely one of the lesser parts of the game, is that the manual's, you know, black and white, has not a lot of images, and it's super short. There are some super, super high detailed full color manuals for the NES in the later era, but this is not one of them. It reads pretty similar to a lot of the other Capcom manuals. Start off with a special message, safety precautions, whatever, getting started. We have a message from Shush, and, you know, just a little briefing of the story and everything. We got our bad guys list here. Just wish he was in color and not just literally drawn with the lines. But it's alright. We have "Let's Get Dangerous." Gotta have that. It's an important phrase. And it's crime time, and Darkwing Duck is on the case. Yes. So, it talks about how you gotta go and stop the bad guys. And then it talks about grabbing a ledge. So, then we see the 3 different gases that you can use, which I went into detail about already. And, you know, more quotes from old DW up here, which are great. And we see some special items here. One thing I wanted to mention is that the 1-ups are like super satisfying to collect. They are really well, they like pop out really well in the game. And, you know, first aid kits and extra energy and then points. It's a very simple game. So it makes sense why the manual is this way, but it's just not too fun to look at. And we have some top secret tips, which I should have looked at earlier because it talks about his cape being used as a shield. And then check it out, we see an ad for Tailspin, which is another game on the Afternoon Collection. And that's it, it's really quick. Before I send Mega Man 8 back to the Shadow Realm, I'll give my final thoughts on Darkwing Duck. It truly deserves a spot as one of the best Capcom NES games, and one of the best games, period, on the system. I had never played it previously or watched the show, and I'm glad that I got to do both through this video. Darkwing Duck will absolutely be getting its own spot on the top shelf of my NES games now. So thank you all so much for watching, and let's finish this! Alright, I've beaten Steelbeak. Now, Mega Man 8 should have vanished by now. Why is that here? Why is that here? It's fully here, it's not transparent anymore. I thought beating the game was the answer. Well, if beating Darkwing Duck wasn't the answer, and Mega Man 8 won't die, I think I know what I need to play next.